Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Kevin Mitchell. I'm with Modio Information Group. Thank you very much for joining today's session titled How You Can Preserve Your Publication's Central Role in the Discourse of Your Specialty by Converting it to Audio. And first, just to provide a little bit of background on the organization as well as the problems that we address for our clients. We believe that text media has a critical role to play in today's discourse. It is clearly more substantive than other media formats. That's something that's important to remember. Something that nobody disagrees with. It enjoys a higher level of editorial rigor than other media formats. And it's also the place where we go to create a record and repository of evidence-based research. And so for all those reasons, we think that it's absolutely critical that text media not only is preserved, but that it thrives. There's obviously been some challenges as of late over the past several years. In our view, the one disadvantage that text has is that it's a little bit less convenient than other sources. When we think of television, even radio, those sources are more convenient because they lend themselves to multitasking. And historically, that's been a disadvantage for text. Part of what we're going to talk about today is the opportunity to combine the superior substance of text with the convenience of audio and thereby eradicate that disadvantage. But the way that that disadvantage currently manifests excuse me, is the audience knows the value of the publication, the importance of staying informed in their area of expertise. But because of the demands on their time, especially when they're at their desk, in the office, at work, and can be conducting other premium activities, things like seeing patients, billing clients, servicing clients, conducting research, they just don't always get to read these materials as much as they would like. That obviously has the consequence of lower engagement from your perspective, which jeopardizes retention and audience growth, as well as ultimately reduces the value that can be delivered to sponsors, advertisers, so on and so forth. Another manifestation of this disadvantage is changing consumption habits. People are having less and less time. Technological advances are creating emerging sources that compete with text. And so it's important to modernize these sources to reflect changing consumption habits, particularly with an orientation towards attracting and engaging younger members. The solution: convert your publication to a timely, word-for-word, human-narrated, smartphone-enabled audio format. And what this does is it solves the problem that the audience has. The math is that it gives them on average at least 209 hours of additional time, and I'll explain why that's at least. At a much lower opportunity cost. They're no longer foregoing that premium office time. Rather, they're consuming the exact same material during multitasking. The 209 hours represents the average amount of time that Americans commute, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. In our view, we would contend that that number is actually much larger because there's other pockets in the day that lend themselves to multitasking. So getting ready in the morning, exercising, making dinner in the evening, so on and so forth. Basic economics shows that if you give your audience higher capacity to consume your content, lower opportunity costs, that's going to lead to higher consumption, which is another way of saying engagement. And when we take a step back, there's really two things that reading your publication is competing with. One is other activities, very formidable, very hard to compete with those premium activities. The other thing that you're competing with is other sources. And so part of what is accomplished by virtue of putting your content into an audio format is you create a very immediately observable basis of differentiation. Currently, you're competing on things like better analysis, better accuracy, better timeliness. These are things that are experienced over time. Having the more convenient audio format is black and white. You have it or you don't. In addition to that, you put your content on a better competitive footing, in the sense that right now you, as well as your most formidable competing sources, are hitting your audience's inbox. If you put the content in audio and basically make it accessible during multitasking, driving as an example, the next best source of information might be something like NPR, where different people could have varying opinions about your source versus your next best competitive source. Clearly, while NPR is fine for mainstream news, for your audience, the specialized content that you provide is going to be much more valuable. In addition to that, you're expanding the value proposition of your service offering. Now it's not just content, but you're offering time. I think we all know a sense of what the audience's time is worth, what an hour of their time is worth. My strong suspicion is that for most, if not all of you, if that you were able to convert a very small amount of time, maybe a couple of hours during the course of a year of saved office time for your clients, your audience, I should say, that would more than pay for the subscription, the membership, so on and so forth. And obviously, you're the ones that control this content, and by virtue of that, have the ability to do that. And lastly, by virtue of increasing engagement, that gives you something that you can now sell to sponsors and advertisers. Very important distinction. A lot of times when people hear the word audio, they think podcast. The audio embodiment that we're describing here is not a podcast. It's most analogous to an audio book in the sense that we're taking an existing text source and converting it to audio. The main difference here is that we're dealing with sources that change on a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly basis, whereas audiobooks, taking Great Gatsby as an example, that's the same as it was 50 years ago. Podcast erodes the audience from the text, whereas the audio embodiment here, it underscores the value of the text in the sense that eyes wide open, it's just an audio edition of the text. And perhaps most importantly, looking at the distinction through the lens of the problem that it solves. For the folks that are here today, you have existing content sources. And so if you add a podcast, it's basically a supplement to your text, which would be great if the problem that your audience has is that they need more content. In our view, that's not the problem that most people have. In fact, they complain of information overload. Rather, the problem that most people have is that they don't have time to consume the sources that they already deem as valuable. Again, content is no longer as scarce as it was by virtue of the internet. Time is really the bottleneck. And so you're solving your audience's problem in terms of consuming your content, which they deem as valuable, by giving them the time to do it. An additional unique element of our mousetrap, we have a patented process where we engage students from the area of expertise to produce the narrations. This has a lot of benefits. It creates an additional layer of engagement. We're literally paying the next generation of your audience to start consuming your content now. That creates a pipeline to new members, new subscribers. It also has a positive effect on the branding, quality, and timeliness of the audio edition. We recruit from top schools. This is a sample of schools where we've hired students from in the past for existing clients. It also helps with the quality in the sense that these students know how to pronounce the technical jargon. And from a timeliness standpoint, because of the flexibility of their schedules, it helps them to make sure that we produce the audio edition so that it's ready for release at the same time that the text comes out, which is very important. A couple of reference points from an outside source. Audio Publishers Association, in conjunction with independent research firm Edison Research, recently did a study regarding the significant trend in text converted to spoken word audio. Here are some highlights. It's now the fastest growing segment in all of publishing. 8 straight years of double-digit growth. This past year at 16%. This past year, it also hit a significant milestone in the sense that the market size is now larger than ebooks. Ebooks is about $983 million. Text converted to spoken word audio is now at $1.2 billion. And perhaps most importantly, certainly to our existing clients, is that while new sources are being added in this format, listeners are still finding more and more time to listen, which is another way of saying that they still have excess capacity. When was the last time your audience had excess capacity to read anything? Ever since the invention of the printing press, the capacity to produce print has exceeded the pace of reading it. And so this is a very unique window. There's going to be those that take advantage of it, and there's going to be those that miss it. But we think a very unique opportunity to kind of seize right now. Additional detail about the profile of the average digital audio listener. Average age is between 18 and 34. They also tend to be more educated and more affluent than the general population, much like the audience of most, if not all, of the participants today. Some testimonials from existing users from our clients. The two themes here are that they consume more of the content, which again, something we anticipated. You increase capacity, reduce opportunity costs, consumption is going to go up. And then secondly, perhaps even more importantly, and something that we didn't anticipate, but I alluded to earlier, is that by virtue of them not having to consume these materials in the office, it actually frees up additional time to dedicate to those premium activities. Again, we know what our audience's time is worth, and that can more than offset the cost of the subscription or the membership. These are some testimonials from one of our clients, the American Bar Association, several leaders of the organization. I'll come back to these in a moment so that you have a little bit more time to review them. But the balance of our time today is going to be conducting a demo. And so what I'm going to have everybody do now is download a version of our app. For our clients, we create a custom branded version of our app. The version that I'm going to have you download is ABA RPTE Audio. Type that into the search option on the App Store in your mobile device. You'll see an icon that looks like this. Once you download it, these are the login credentials. Email is appdemo, and password is SSP123, all lowercase. And what I'll do now is bring back up those testimonials, and you'll see that the instructions to download and log into the app are below. I'll pause for another 10, 15 seconds to allow everybody to do that, and then we'll continue with the demo. What I'm going to do now is pivot to the demo on my phone, sharing my screen again, pulling up and putting my phone on the full screen. Following the instructions, I'm going to my App Store. I've typed in ABA RPTE Audio. I'm opening it, previously downloaded onto my phone. When you guys open the app, what you should see in the heading is ABA Probate and Property. This is the flagship publication for the Real Property Trust and Estate Law section of the ABA. And there's going to be three elements of the demo. One is the overall functionality that we use to support audio distribution, particularly the audio edition of the publication. Number two, how clients are using their custom branded Modio app to extend the reach of their numerous other content sources. Number three, the advertising elements of the app. And so diving right in, again, the problem that we're seeking to solve is that people see value in the text but don't have time to read it. So what we want to do is combine the attributes of text that people like with the convenience of audio. What are the things that people like about text? Number one, it's the substance. So all the files are word for word. They're not digested or summarized. Secondly, what people like about text is the granularity, the article-specific topic selectivity. And so if you take your thumb and scroll up and down, you'll see that the article titles scroll through. These are the exact same titles that appear in the text version. When you come to a title of interest, you tap it, the full audio page opens up and the article will start to play. You can hit the pause button at the bottom if you want to turn the audio off. But basically, to go through this, you have a bunch of player controls at the bottom. Users can write a review about the narration or the substance of the article. We use that as a reference for quality control. On the right side is the text button, giving easy access to the text version of the article. That's helpful if there's tables, graphs, things of that nature, although the most salient points of those items are going to be discussed in the actual text. Above that area is one of the advertising elements. We'll come back to that. Above that on the left, you can adjust the speed of the player. On the right side with the envelope icon, this is what we call the sharing feature. When you tap this icon, it will send a pre-formatted email to the user's inbox that contains a link to the audio of just this article that users can share with anybody. Subscribers, non-subscribers, they can put it on social media, so on and so forth. When you think about the life cycle of information, the first thing you do is inform yourself. Then knowledge management, you diffuse that to others, colleagues, prospects, clients. This is intended to kind of service that need. Again, people are consuming this during multitasking, so you don't want to require a lot of navigation on the phone. But when they get to their inbox at their desk, they can then forward that along. That link is inextricably accompanied by promotions for the organization, the publication, the sponsors, as well as the audio edition of the publication. So existing clients like that balance. Not giving access to the text version, it's only giving access to the audio of that one article with very limited functionality. Above this area, you have the progress line. Users can navigate around this to jump around the article. Above that, I mentioned earlier that we use students to produce the narrations. As a part of their narrations, they get to post some information about themselves, name, school, graduation year, email address, and LinkedIn profile. Obviously, this helps to incentivize them to create high quality narrations because your audience represent networking contacts, colleagues, maybe even employers. Hitting the icon in the upper left to go back to the home page. One of the underlying assumptions of this that's different than a music player, where often podcasts are played, is that these files are single use. So that means you're going to organize the files by date, always with the most recent issue on the home page. You can navigate to prior releases with the archive button. Going back to the home page, you also want to delineate between articles that the user has and has not listened to. This green dot appears next to articles that the user has not listened to. It disappears when articles have been played. If an individual article is single use, a playlist is single use. And so you want to streamline that process. You tap the stars next to the files of interest. Those get deposited into your playlist, which is the third option from the left at the bottom. And that allows users to self-curate the content of most interest. It also tells you how much time is in the playlist, which is helpful during recurring habitual multitasking activities. Going back to the home page, beneath the star icon is the download arrow. When you tap that, the articles quickly download to the phone. Once those are downloaded, you can access them from anywhere in the app without an internet connection, without using the data plan. There's also functionality on the app to automatically download new issues of the publications when the phone's connected to Wi-Fi. Tapping the user icon in the upper right, and then listening statistics. We have more robust analytics for the content source clients, but these are typically the statistics of most interest to the users. Again, these are proxies for the benefits that users most often articulate in terms of the service. Consuming more of the content, saving desk time. Hitting the black arrow a couple times more. Now shifting to how clients are using this to extend the reach of other content sources. Next to the title and the heading, you see a little green arrow pointing down. This is your channel changer. Clients are using this to extend the reach of conference presentations, as an example. ASAE has been putting out a lot of content about repurposing conference content to create a new revenue stream or extend its value after the conference is over. Clients are using that to do that here. As an example, if you go to bonus programming, this is an example of how the health law section of the ABA is doing this. These are conference presentations. You come to one of interest, you tap it. This is an audio recording of that presentation. You tap the text button, and it includes the slide deck of that presentation. We can do video, but clients are preferring the audio recording with control of the text, control of the slide deck, which is a better user experience when you consider that the video is essentially just going to be a projector of the slide deck that the user then doesn't have control over. Other types of content, continuing education. We can do existing continuing education. We have the analytics to do that. In some instances, the audio edition of the publication can be a new source of continuing education by virtue of the enhanced ability to monitor consumption relative to text. Other sources here, member benefits. Clients are using this to onboard new members. In some instances, we're discussing recruiting content from non-members. Professor's Corner is an example of a recurring webinar series. Essential Guide to Corporate Real Estate is an example of an audiobook. Again, sometimes they monetize these sources, sometimes they offer them as member benefits, always with the opportunity to monetize the advertising. It's essentially like having your own custom branded Audible app, except you get to monetize the content, monetize the advertising, keep all the data. Going to the advertising elements, as we've been navigating around, you've noticed the overall app sponsor at the top. If you tap this, basically a medium rectangle size ad comes in. That's a 300 by 250. It can be accompanied by audio at the advertiser's election, hyperlink to the advertiser's website. Hitting the channel changer again, going back up to probate and property. You saw this advertisement earlier. It's an inline ad appearing between article titles. Again, medium rectangle in size, can be accompanied by audio, hyperlink to the advertiser's website. The article ad, which is on the full audio page, headline and size, 320 by 50, hyperlink to the advertiser's website, also included on that sharing email that I can send. And then hitting the channel changer again, going to Strategic Partners Spotlight. You can have a sponsor showcase most often for your premium sponsors. Again, these can be accompanied by audio, hyperlink to the advertiser's website. So that's basically what I have. If you'd like me to send you the media kit or the sharing email, send me an email. Obviously, also, if you have an interest in having further discussions about creating an audio edition of your publication, very much appreciate your time. I'll put my contact information up and would be delighted to hear from you.